For this episode, Nashi Stroy, we are going to go over a new Tim Pool video that just released a day ago. The far left is in a cult, refuse to hold conversations, will scream to silence you. Obviously, this is going to be completely rational and not unhinged at all. Didn't search very far for this one. Just the current zeitgeist is just this apparently on the center.
That is not accepted or the government or the establishment approves of, and you make enough noise, they'll come after you. And you don't have to be a politician for that. You can be any activist. If you ruffle enough feathers, rock the boat, and your unapproved, unacceptable opinion makes enough noise, you can find yourself under investigation.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. This country famously had the McCarthy era, if you remember that happened. A lot of leftists were put in prison for having left-wing opinions. That's the thing that happened. It's never happened on the right wing, though, and it's completely fucking insane to consider or even suggest that, like, the left has any political power or any structural power in this country. But let's see where you go with this, my man, because you're on Tim Pool. I doubt that you're about to say what I did.
I don't see a simple solution to anything. Like decentralization, I get, but man,
Decentralization you get, Tim? How do you get decentralization? Are you an anarchist now, Tim? Tim's the anarchist?
the ideological homogenization, polarization, not homogenization, the ideological polarization that we're seeing in this country. How do you decentralize ideology?
You have conversations.
Well,
You have conversations.
but come on.
And I mean, you're right. There is no simple solution to the problems that
We're just having conversations, guys. We're just having conversations. We're just talking about the most radical way to get rid of groups of people. It's just conversations, guys. We're just talking about how the country is about to have a civil war, because that's a valid thing to say. That's a totally not unhinged and wild ass pull.
that we have.
But you can't have conversations with a cult.
I mean, if you call them a cult, no.
Okay, Tim, you're the one that is saying that the country's gonna fall apart, and that there's gonna be a civil war. That's you.
You can't have a conversation.
It doesn't
with
matter
them.
what you
But
call them.
if you stand there and if you walk into their neighborhood and you say, "Hey, I'm here knocking doors for the guy that normally doesn't knock the doors. What do you consider to be the problem?" And then they surprise you with saying, Congress is the problem. And then you start talking about the issues, and you find out that you have a lot more in common than you.
No, you don't. That's not how that works. The commonality thing is kind of like a myth. It's like a hyperbolic thing. It doesn't exist. There is a commonality, and I have a problem with my congressperson. Like, if you go all the way to, like, the highest resolution, or like the lowest resolution possible, however you want to phrase that, right? Like, if you go all the way to I'm hungry, and the other person next to you says I'm hungry too, you have a commonality, right? But if you're hungry because your delivery driver for your Uber hasn't arrived yet, and the person next to you is hungry because they're unable to get a job because there's no job market available for them, because there's anti-worker laws and legislation, and the entire country is designed to basically just make people suffer and not be able to make enough money to live if they were unfortunate enough to be born poor. That commonality goes away. Like, yeah, you guys had the I'm hungry commonality, but the solution to both of your guys' problems is very different, right? Your solution is you just have to wait another 10 minutes for your Uber. That person's solution is much more complicated. They don't have food, so they have to like go to a shelter or try to panhandle for money and deal with people being complete and utter dicks to them or just ignoring them for being in a situation that was created for no reason. There's no reason that this person is in this situation. The amount of money that we spend on taxes to like disperse homeless people, not like take care of them. No. The amount of money that we spend on policing and in areas that there's large homeless populations. The amount of money that we spend in infrastructure, like spiked benches or spikes in the middle of underpasses so that homeless people can't sleep there. This money could have gone to building a homeless shelter. Like, you had the money. It would have cost the same. If this was like a regular ass RPG, if you were playing an RPG game like Fallout, and like that's how basic that question was for the people in power at the time when they made that financial decision, right? Like they were presented with a choice. Hey, by the way, there's homeless people. We could A, provide for their needs and get them off the streets because people don't like seeing homeless people on the streets. So we could get them a shelter. Or B, for the same amount of money, we could just like make them more miserable and make it impossible for them to live in any meaningful way without like succumbing to some ridiculous trade. Like holding on 3 or 4 jobs. So like, yeah, not a real thing. The commonalities of suggesting that, well, just get rid of all government regulation, that would make life worse for people, right? If you did anarchy, right? If you just went, actually, no taxes and then no more welfare programs. It's like, everybody's life gets worse. The only person whose life doesn't get worse is the fucking factory owners, right? Like the people that actually own the businesses. Cool, dude. Like that. No, not. I don't agree. I would rather that the state own the businesses, or better yet, a better option would be that the workers owned the businesses.
Otherwise would have known.
There are certainly instances where the right and the left have been like, if we can agree on this thing, can we at least do that? And they still don't happen. So there's one viral video from a couple of years ago where a woman was going knocking on doors and she got attacked because she was pro-life. She was going to knock on doors and asking people and having conversations, and she got physically attacked. Yeah, I call them a cult because they're a cult, right? And I'll give you an explanation. I'll give you a good story. It is, why am I forgetting the guy's name? The famous blues musician. Man, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He's awesome. He de-radicalized the Klan. You guys know what I'm talking about?
What fucking wild tangent are we Tim, what the fuck are you talking about?
I'm confusing him with someone else, and I don't want to get the name wrong. So let me... Everybody in the chat knows.
The only person I can think of is Coltrane, but...
Bro, like... This is schizophrenic. What the fuck? How do you go from talking about the far left, like just instantly? That transition was so abrupt. You're talking about, oh, the far left is in a cult, and fails to elaborate. There's a jazz musician that I know that was de-radicalizing people. By the way, the only musician I can think of is Coltrane. What, bro? What are you guys are you guys gonna like start jamming out? Is he gonna grab that fucking guitar behind him next? What the fuck?
It's Daryl Davis. I want to say David. I'm like, it's not David. It's Daryl Davis.
Okay.
So we invited Daryl Davis to speak at an event we were having. He's famous for being this. He's this old black blues musician who one day said to himself, "I don't understand how someone could hate me if they never met me."
Okay. So he's a blues musician who like de-radicalized people. Cool. What does that have to do with the previous topic of the far left's not willing to talk to you?
So he went to Klan rallies.
Far left.
And they were all racist. They didn't attack him or anything. He talked to him. And he said, and they had a lot of views, and they were backwards. And eventually, by getting to know him, a lot of these guys were like, everything they told me was not true. None of these things describe you, Daryl. You're a good dude. And that de-radicalized him. One of my favorite stories.
You can be a liberal. You can de-radicalize people from racism with liberalism. That works, right? That's a functional thing that you can do, because famously capitalism is known for wanting to make people money and accumulate as much money as possible. And the best way to do that is to have as much customers as possible. And this isn't like a far left talking point. This is like a capitalist talking point. This is like what's supposedly one of the benefits of capitalism, right? Like, if you understand what capitalism is, you understand that, like, the goal of it, which liberalism is a function of capitalism. This is why Republicans and Democrats are both liberals. As far as I'm concerned, they just have very shitty domestic policies on the Republican side. But they're both going to internationally and economically have the exact same policies, right? Because it's just a function of capitalism. It's an extension of that. You make more money when you have more people that are equal in capitalism, just like basic economic theory, right? And that's not even from a materialist Marxist perspective. That's from just like a standard capitalist perspective.
Was that he met this like prominent Klansman.
Which, by the way, is why failed to complete the point there, which is why when you are a capitalist and you are a liberal, you are going to try and de-radicalize people from being racist, because that's bad for business. And by it being bad for business in general, people allow themselves to have the logical thought of not being racist, because that is the default logic that you should have at this point in civilization, because we know that there's literally no differences between people on any intellectual or reasonable physical level, unless you're talking about like the Himalayan monks. Like, race is not a real thing unless you're talking about like Himalayan monks that like legitimately have a higher lung capacity, right? But that's like a physical attribute that doesn't make them like a different type of human. That just means that they have a slightly increased physical capacity. But like, that's the only example. Okay, there is no other real examples of that. And especially there's absolutely no physical, mental examples. So if you want to be a good capitalist and you live in a capitalist system and you are a particular liberal and like liberal ideals make capitalism more palatable. They are what flavor capitalism with the with the flavor that we have of like rainbow capitalism, right? So it's like more palatable to normal people, because what you're engaging in when you engage in capitalism is the exploitation of workers, and everybody that's engaging in that system has some degree of culpability. The most degree of culpability is always obviously going to be the bourgeois. It's going to be the top of that list, and it trickles down from there, where you're encouraging like class traders, right? Like people that just like manage workers, like back in the day when they invented the time clock and they rounded people up and arrested them when they were like late for work. Like, that's a real thing that happened, and that's like a class trader. But getting back to my point, people have way more in common with each other in class terms than they have in any racial term, right? Because racial terms don't really exist, right? So if you find yourself in the same background as somebody, like literally growing up in the same house with somebody of a different ethnic nationality or origin, you're going to like turn out the same. You're going to have the same average, like, and you do this across like a million houses, right? You take that one example that I just said, and you do that across like a million houses. You're going to end up with people that are there's going to be an average, and you're going to find no disparity between those original ethnic backgrounds and origins, right? Because that's how humans work. capitalism recognizes this and can capitalize on everybody. So they want to extract as much wealth from as much people as possible. And the best way to do that is if everybody's equally available to be exploited, right? But still, that's the flavoring. That's where you get liberalism. That's where liberalism makes it a little bit more palatable to engage in such a horrific system. Because now, it's like, hey, we have to engage in this system. Like, you have to have the baseline assumption that no other system is functional and can't actually work. So this is the default that everybody has to subscribe to, whether we like it or not. It's not the worst system. It's the best we've got so far. That is the logic, I would say, or the justification for its existence, right? So if you justified its existence that way, then you can do things like try to be a nice and decent human, because people, I think, at heart want to be good people. I think most people, for the most part, don't want to be dicks and hurt each other or be mean to each other. I think for the most part, people are genuinely just good. And it allows us to express that with, how would I say, making other people equal, I guess, giving rights to people whose rights have been withheld, which, by the way, were withheld in the first place because of capitalism, right? Because it was more profitable in the past to exploit people by not making them equal. You see, and it's like a market that fluctuates with human rights. Like, and everybody's culpable in this. So, yes, a liberal is going to have disagreements, as you can tell by me even trying to process through this by giving kind of both sides of the argument here, that they're going to have a disagreement with a socialist or a anti-capitalist. Because an anti-capitalist is, by definition, not a liberal, because the liberal is an extension of capitalism, right? It's not the same thing. You can be progressive and a socialist. You can be progressive and a liberal. You can be progressive and a conservative. It's technically on like economic conservative, which, by the way, is like the worst conservative, because their economics are just shit. But you can't you can't say that that's like a unreasonable thing. I'm willing to talk to you about it. Any actual left-leaning person that's an anti-capitalist is completely able and willing to have these discussions. It's just that you don't like the answers, and you're just going to say that's not an answer because it's not based in reality. It's like, okay, you literally have a different worldview, and you're unwilling to accept that you don't have to live in a oppressive system. And if that's your baseline, like, I can try to explain it to you, but if you just go, what are you going to do?
Man, who was very racist. And he heard that the guy was a big fan of this, rock and roll legend. I can't remember the exact name. This guy owned his famous car. And he was talking to him one day, and he asked him, like, what kind of music is he into? And the guy mentioned he's a huge fan of this rock and roll guy. And Daryl, being a well-known industry musician, said, yeah, I can get you in the museum. You want to sit in the car? And the guy was like, what? And he's like, you come with me. I will get you in that car, the legendary car of this rock and roll superstar. And he's like, you're kidding me.
Make a fucking point, dude. That you're not making any points. You're just telling a story about this jazz musician de-radicalizing somebody. That's cool, but like, what does that have to do as an example of the left not willing to talk to you?
And the guy cried. It's like his dream came true, and he was like, I can't believe everything they told me about this is just a lie. Daryl, you've made my dreams come true. I can't believe it. He de-radicalized all these people. So we invite him to speak. We say, come to our event, headline, speak. He got a standing ovation. Everybody was so inspired by the guy. And all his story was let's talk to each other. he told these great stories about how he showed up to Klan meetings and people thought he was crazy. They're going to kill you. And he's like, no, they're not. They just said.
I can't do this, dude. I need to skip ahead. Like, are you actually gonna make a point, or are you just saying this story? Is this gonna be like a fucking 14 minutes? Is this gonna be like nine minutes of your stupid story about like that has nothing to do with the argument you were making?
Burn the theater down. I can't do this. Go somewhere else. So we lost our venue of 1,000 seats.
Okay.
And racism. And it was a very libertarian event. We had progressives there. And
That is like an oxymoron. Libertarians are not progressive. That's not how that works. Libertarians, by definition, cannot be progressive. You can be conservative and progressive. You can't be a libertarian and progressive. They're antithetical to each other. Because to be progressive, you have to subscribe to some degree of welfare that's antithetical to libertarianism. Right? Like, you understand that. Like, those are their core beliefs. No welfare, no taxes, libertarians. Like, in America, right? Everywhere else in the world, libertarian is not what it means here, okay? But libertarians in America are literally just like everybody's their own little feudal king. That's what that means here. So you don't have welfare. You don't have state welfare, okay? All right. Progressives, yeah, okay.
so they threatened to burn the theater down. They didn't want it to happen. That's a cult. The theater owner 2 weeks out said, they're threatening to burn the theater down. I can't do this. Go somewhere else. So we lost our venue of 1,000 seats, and the best we could do was go to a casino that had 500 seats. We ended up having to refund tickets. We lost a lot of money from it, but the event happened anyway. The venue that was across the street from the theater that was going to host the after party for those who bought VIP tickets refused to back down. They were moderate, liberal types.
Dude, he's spinning a yarn, dog. He really wants to tell you this story where he met this cool jazz musician. That's all this is, right? Like, he just really wants to be a fucking rock star. So he's sharing this completely fucking irrelevant story. Awesome. That doesn't help in any way explain why or justify why you think that nobody wants to talk to you from the left. I'm pretty sure they're completely willing.
They started getting inundated with phone calls from people saying, you're racists, you're fascists. And it was really awesome. Because I was there, and we were, like, paying a deposit. And someone called. And the woman who owned it, she was like, look at this. San Francisco phone number. And so she answers it, and she's like, hi, what can I do for you? And the guy was like, I'm wondering why it is you're hosting a bunch of fascists. And I'm upset. And I think that, if you do this, then I will never be a customer at your...
Cool story, bro. And then everybody fucking clapped. Everybody... All right.
establishment. And she's like, where do you live? And he was like, well, California. And she was like, you've never been to my establishment. You never will be. So why are you calling me? And that was...
It's literally a fucking Reddit green text story. Tim, you are doing a Reddit green text story, okay? Like, why do you think the left won't talk to you? This is amazing. Like talking to you means that you're gonna go on these amazing little journeys. Like, that's fun, but you're not going to win any actual arguments. I think you're the one that doesn't want to talk to the left.
fascinating to see. Some guy on the other side of the country who had no idea what was going on, saw on the internet and decided he would join the cult. Here's what ends up happening. We have the event.
Yeah. Yes, because that's how you join the cult. You prank call a restaurant. First of all, that probably didn't even fucking happen. The reality is that it probably didn't fucking happen. I don't know. I don't know how reliable Tim is a source, given all his other media mishaps. But dog, if you got prank call, if somebody calls you and says, "Hey, is your refrigerator running?" is your immediate fucking response to hang up and go straight to the gun store because, oh no, they're coming after me? Okay, like, really? No, That's not rational, Tim.
It's fantastic. Everybody's hanging out. We got this $1,000 bottle of scotch, and everybody took a little bit. And across the street were far leftists, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. And so Daryl Davis, he's like, I'm gonna go talk to him. And we were like, Daryl, look, be careful, you know. And he's like, nah, come on. He's like, I know what I'm doing. What do you think happened?
He's saying, like, he's really, you can tell Tim really enjoys telling this story, and that's adorable, because like this is like a moment for him where he got to meet one of his musical heroes, and he's just gonna like really amp this up. It's like, yeah, man, there were like some protesters that were like, I don't like fascism, and then my boy was like, hey, let me go talk to them. I can be reasonable. And I was like, no, bro, don't go there. You don't know that they're crazy. They're all crazy. And then he was like, yeah, no, I got this. Because with the power of friendship, we will conquer anything. Like, that's where we're going with this. We're doing a Naruto.
Happened when he went across the street.
They probably attacked him.
They screamed at him. They called him a Nazi and a fascist. And every time he tried to speak, they would start chanting, so he couldn't. He came back in, it was like, what the just happened? He ended up writing this viral post on Facebook about how never in his life has he...
This is the part of the Naruto episode where they play the sad song. I can't play it because of copyright, but you know exactly which one I'm saying. The dee-doo-doo. You know that one. This is fucking awesome.
experienced anything like that. That his whole mission has been de-radicalization, speaking with each other, communication.
Oh, it's so
that he's been able to go to the most vile of white supremacists and talk to them, even when they hate him and never agree with him. Some of them...
The power levels were over 9,000. This was an enemy that we could not defeat. This new type of leftist is so unreasonable. We just never saw one of these before.
Them agreed and de-radicalized.
Like literally fucking McCarthy.
And got de-radicalized and handed their robes to him. Others told him he was wrong and they would never agree with him. But they would debate and they would argue with each other. But when he tried approaching Antifa and far leftists, they screamed at him and refused to even speak in any way. That's what we're dealing with.
So, if you want to be able to have a conversation with them, you have to break their large group, which you mentioned, people from all across.
I can't keep going on this. This is the most ridiculous shit ever. They're just going around in a circle and saying nothing. Fuck. Okay, this is gonna be it for a minute.